this transition. And hello and welcome to Live Coding Happy Hour, the best way to start a Friday if you are a ServiceNow nerd, just like the three of us. I'm Dave Slusher. I'm joined with Chuck Tomasi and the not visible but quite present Andrew Barnes. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
So Andrew's camera's not working, so he's gonna be the disembodied voice in the machine the whole time. But we are going to continue forward with our work from last week, where Chuck is working on his Flow Designer Spoke for his IoT devices, and we're really basically just going to pick up exactly where we left off last time. So with that, let's go around the horn, starting with Chuck, and let's give the introductions.
Hey, my name is Chuck Tomasi from ServiceNow. I've been with the company for about 8 years, customer for a couple before that. My focus has always been on custom applications, integrations, generally everything around the platform. So good to be here today.
All right, Andrew.
Awesome. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Andrew Barnes. I'm a service management architect at a ServiceNow client, Novant Health, and I run a team of developers and act as the product owner for that client.
All right, and I'm Dave Slusher. I'm the developer advocate for the developer program here at ServiceNow. And although we can't see Andrew, we'll have to take your word for it. Let's go around the horn again and talk about what we're drinking.
I'm just looking at that spinning circle on YouTube, and it's kind of ominous, like hell.
I know.
Andrew's going to have to come up with some line to Dave. I can't open the file.
Just think how powerful it will be when it loads.
Andrew Barnes is our AI today. I am having the Modelo Negra, and this is one of, every time I drink this, I feel like I have to be eating shrimp tacos or fajitas or something. This is my go-to beer at Mexican restaurants. If they have it, I will have it. So I feel like I'm missing the food component right now.
All right. Andrew, what do you have?
I think I have a similar experience. I would feel the same way there, Chuck. Today, I'm drinking a Samuel Smith's chocolate stout from the UK. So I'm pretty excited about this.
Well, oddly enough, I've got a Young's double chocolate stout. So that's
very nice.
That's what I've got. I'm using the external camera. I forgot where to look here. All right. So with that, let's go ahead, Chuck, and get your share going.
Yeah. While we're doing that, I want to let you know that we had a snug yesterday, and after the snug, Mike Stockman, who is our developer meetup coordinator in Phoenix, Arizona, he invited my wife and I to a little microbrew and said, "Hey, we're having a brewing class. Have you ever made beer before?" And I said, "Well, I've assisted with that endeavor." He said, "Well, we're going to make a beer." So we selected a porter, and then came the time to name this beer. And we had a hard time coming up with the name. It's harder to name beers than it is your kids, because we wanted some nerd thing like SSH Port 22 Porter or something, nerdy, or USB or Parallel Porter or something. We eventually settled on Source Code Porter, and it's going to be listed on their board at OSO on Indian School Road in Phoenix, Arizona, if you happen to be there. The tapping date is May 14th, and we're going to get our developer meetup group back together to sample that, because we've got 55 gallons of it we can drink.
There you go. All right.
Basically a oil drum full of beer. But it looked really good. All right, so where we were, to quick update where we were last week, is I had some tables, and I want to send our IoT device various REST requests based on the conditions in those records. So it's almost like an event management system. I've got a list of buttons. The buttons are going to get hit. Those I'm calling triggers. So let me get Dave's camera off of that little screen there so we can see just ServiceNow. I've got a button registry, which just takes a serial number and gives it a friendly name. A trigger that comes in and says, "Hey, somebody pressed this button once or twice or held it long time," whatever it is. This is a simulation of the Amazon IoT button records that are coming in. Normally, they'd come in from Amazon. I created these on my own. We're testing the Flow Designer, so we don't need to keep pressing the IoT button to generate these events. Then there's a set of rules, or lookups, as I call them. I'm keeping these tables very simply named. the lookup table says, all right, if the bathroom button was pressed twice, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to go call this REST API, which is in the target table. And it simply consists of the host and an endpoint. Okay, I've got Chuck Norris quotes. I've got a random user, which gives me lots of details, and UI names, which gives me another random user with not so much information. These are open, no credentials, public APIs that I just want to hit. This is a simulation of what I'm going to do to my target device. I'll put in real targets here and maybe drive them through a mid server in London, that kind of thing. But that's the basic structure. A button comes in, Flow will look up and say, which records match this? Because the lookup rules have they have condition fields in them. And it's reverse of what you would think if I was going to do a lookup activity on a flow and say, go find all the records that match. I'm not sure what happened there. Go find all the records that match this condition. I'm looking for all the records that have a condition that match this record. It's a reverse. So we came up with a flow that had a custom action in it to do that lookup. And it worked, surprisingly enough. Let me bring up the action, show you that real quick, just to bring you back up to speed of where we were. This is previously on Live Coding Happy Hour. We called our application LCHH. And I have my record lookup action. I gave it inputs. I said, which trigger record, which button press would you like me to act on? The script then did the glide filter.condition, which is the key to making all that lookup stuff happen. It says, hey, I got a record. Does it match? If it matches, I'm going to put it on an array and then finally pass back that array of sysids to or pass it into the next step using these inputs and outputs from each step. This says, go do a lookup record, which we have easy access to, where all the sysids is one of this list. I apologize for the font getting a little squishy on us there. Hopefully that's not too small, but the format.
Chuck,
yeah, Andrew.
Your screen and the stream is cut off just a little bit to the left. So it's basically on the scroll, so around the N of action outline.
Oh, I am watching on YouTube. Yes, it is missing like a half a tab there. Let me, you know what? I'm going to cheat and just bring that in. I'm not sure if it's a 4x3, 16x9 thing. Bring that in. Is that about where we want to be?
I think you're good there.
There. Okay, we have a little bit of landscape from High Sierra in the background, but we'll never mind that. We should be good there. Make sure the top and bottom aren't cut off. Nope, that looks good. Okay. Which makes this data pill squished again, but that's okay. All right, so that's our one custom action. And that the purpose of that is to say the trigger was created, means I got a new trigger record, no conditions, looking for any kind of particular trigger records. Then it goes and does my custom lookup. You can tell it's got a beer icon for Live Coding Happy Hour. We are using these in draft mode. Okay, I got to repurpose last week's joke. And it's going to take the trigger record and say, go find all of the lookup records that match that. And out of this, I get my list of lookup records. For each lookup record, it's going to trigger the custom REST action, which is going to look like this. It's my Integration Hub REST API. We wrote a script that just extracts a little bit of data out of here and says, from dot walking the lookup record, remember our lookup record looked like this. It has a target to the REST API. I am simply going to pull out the URL, which is I'm going to construct a URL, which is the host plus the resource path, and then pass the host and the resource path, because the REST step, which is built in, we didn't have to do anything there, is going to use those as the base URL for a get method. That part seems to be working just fine. So what's left to do? In fact, let's test that. We'll do a quick test on that, and I'm going to test it on the first record, which will match 2 of my lookups. I have 5 lookup records. 2 of them are going to match. It's going to say, hey, you pressed the living room button once, or whatever it is. And I have 2 records. Ta-da! This debugger, the more I use it, the more I like it. And out of that comes the Chuck Norris quote that says, "It works on my machine," always holds up something. I'm not sure what that says. And then out of the second record, I go and get Nina Roche from France, which is one of the user records. And I can check the log down here, which says I matched kitchen with single item. Kitchen button was pressed once. I'm going to go get a UI name. So it's kind of fun. You can iterate through the records very easily with this debugger. All right, now we're all caught up. There's my Chuck Norris quote. I can't really read it because it's got embedded characters. Can you hover over it? Never clicked on it before. It works on my machine, always holds true for Chuck Norris. Guess it's a debugging thing. Now, what do I want to do with that REST response is store it. I mean, I want to do something with it, but I don't want to create a new Chuck Norris record just for the Chuck Norris records. I'm going to create this target response table. So when a target is hit, it's going to return a JSON payload, and I'm going to simply store those elements, the error code, the error message, and the response body related to the parent target record. So it will show up as a list, a related list on the target record of target responses. It's very easy to say, all right, you hit the Chuck Norris quote, where's the evidence? It will show up in this related list on the bottom. Time for a drink. Even though there was no success yet, but we're getting ready for a success. That's the goal. I want to store these responses. Dave, you were saying something?
No, I was going to just say that the worst part of being the primary talker is fewer drink opportunities.
And dry mouth, yeah.
Exactly.
I'm going to take advantage of it every chance I get.
Take a break whenever you need to.
We know our 2 custom actions are working. We have tested that with the little debugger here. And I am now going to add another thing under this log to create a record. Where is it? Create record. Not a task. It's going to be a record on my just find LCHH. It's faster. My target response record. And I want to save the error code as the, this is what we were running into last week with things grayed out. It's right below the lookup records on step 1. Every time. I don't know why this is. I haven't figured it out yet. But I'm trying to remember what our magic recipe was for fixing it. I guess it's just hit save. Maybe. Let's open it up and add the error code. Well, table is still grayed out, but that's okay. I don't need the table. I need stuff down here. Oops, I have error code twice now. Let's change error code there to error message. We'll drag error message from our response into there. We wanted the response body. Because once you save this thing, you can do anything you want with it. Oh, you know what would be fun is to add that new attribute. The JSON_view attribute to that field. Okay, talk, drag. And finally, we would need to hook it up to the parent record as target. Now, the target came back in this lookup record. So let's take target there and drag it there. All right. We get a relationship hooked up. We hit done. We hit save. And we hit test. We're not done with this show in 15 minutes. I'll tell you that much. it's not that easy.
It's never quite that easy.
No, if it was, we wouldn't do this show. Okay, so it ran fairly long. I don't feel like there's any errors. We've got, oh, look, we got a completed record. Let's drill into that. And we can see the values of our record are up here. I've got error code, error message. I can't really tell what the target record is. Let's go to the actual list. And theoretically, nothing on that related list. Let's go to the target responses. And I should have 2 records here. I do. Okay. Why did I get the target table name and not the target record? Weird. All right. Just for making me go through that pain and suffering, I want to know what the Chuck Norris quote is. We live in an expanding universe. All of it is trying to get away from Chuck Norris. I need some humor out of this failure. Okay, so that
and it will never get away far enough.
It's expanding infinitely. So yeah, well, unless you believe in the big crunch theory, that makes my
Chuck
brain
Norris can still get you.
hurt. The big crunch will happen, but it won't crunch Chuck Norris. We're just going to keep adding to this database. All right, so what happened here, Andrew? Any thoughts? It seemed simple on the surface. This is a reference field. That's a reference value. Why did I get a class name? That smells like a bug.
Yeah, it's nothing's jumping out happy yet.
All right, here's your scripting 101 answer or question. What values, what type of stuff is held in a reference field?
Well, the type of stuff held in a reference field is a sysid.
Exactly. So let's try drilling into the target reference. We'll dot walk to the sysid. This is something I don't encourage doing on a script exercise. Hey, it's not letting me do that.
Why does it still have a drop down?
It has a drop down because you can select the actual values.
You can hard
value.
code. Yeah, you could hard code a value from there if you wanted to.
But I don't want to hard code to one record. I want to make it parametric. But it's not letting me put the sysid. Okay, so if I can't use this, I mean, I can put it there, but it's going to give me the wrong value. And I want this value, but I can't put it there. It feels like Flow Designer doesn't quite understand reference fields and sysids quite right. All right. Just as an experiment, let's take this. I know this is not the right record, but you see the green plus lets me drop it there. Let's see what happens. That is of type record, not of type reference. There's a difference because that's what came out of our lookup. And we're using the stuff out of this loop up here. Let's test it. Do our double whammy here. I think most of the other ones have just a single whammy. It does the lookup, it processes the REST response, it gets the REST response back, and everybody's cool. But if we look at the target responses, should have had live updates on that. This is list v3. No, I deleted the old ones. That's right. I have a sysid, but it's obviously not to the right record. So I can drop a record type. Wow, that was cool. All right, because I purposely made that fail, we must read the Chuck Norris quote. Oh, that's Dolgan Service. That's at Cerveza. I've been brainwashed by Live Coding Happy Hour. The answer is Chuck Norris has a deep and abiding respect for human life, unless it gets in his way. Very nice. Okay, we know those records are wrong. Let's delete them so they don't get in our face later. So we can drop a record type onto a reference field, but we can't drop a reference field onto a reference field, and we can't drop a sysid onto a reference field. I'm confused. Any thoughts? This doesn't seem right. I think we need to go to our friendly live.
Doesn't feel right.
We know the guy who owns Flow Designer, though.
We do.
His initials are Josh Narius. How do we get the sysid into this field if we can't drag it? Dave, thoughts?
We can do a hack. Right. Given that we have
do a lookup and
yes, given that we have the record, we can hack and basically dot walk that in a custom action. That would be one possibility.
I kind of like where Andrew was going with the lookup. I wonder if we could try that. Let's. Whoa. Did I move that accidentally? What's it doing up there? Oh, I did move it. I used the up arrow. I meant to collapse it, but shoot. Like, how'd that get above the log statement all of a sudden? All right. Expand that. Let's cancel that. And between here, can we do a lookup record? The lookup record is going to come from the target. No, it's going to come from the lookup table, which we already have. Kind of annoying, but we already have that. No. It's going to come from the target table. It's going to come from the target table based on the lookup record. So I want this target where the sysid is the stupid grayed out stuff. Pause, save, open. So you can see the rest of your stuff.
There does seem to be a lot of saving here.
That's a good thing. We're going to call that a feature for now.
Yeah, that's a feature.
Save early, save often, kids. And we want the lookup record, where the sysid is lookup record target? Yes?
If it lets us drop that pill right in there.
Well, it did before too, but remember it was giving us a class. So I don't trust this.
I would expect that to still be the class.
I would too. That's what worries me. But let's find out. And then in this record, we would use the output of lookup record target record. This feels like I'm just slapping classes all over the place. Unless I can put the sysid there. It lets me drag records. No, because this is going to be a record. Remember, if the lookup works, then this is going to work. Because when we drag the other record type down here, it gave us a sysid. We're in uncharted waters, people. This is half the fun of live coding happy hour.
I think this might be the cognitive problem that we're having, which is that referenced field is not a type record. You know what I mean?
Which I would expect. I mean, that's a reference.
So it's not quite the identical thing, even though what we're used to in most ServiceNow contexts, it will automatically deal with that. You know what I mean? It doesn't. Yeah. It will basically do the principle of least surprise for you, which is if you expect it to be a record, it will walk it through and reconstitute it as a record. And I think what we're missing is that reconstitution step here.
Okay, so it created the record. I still don't know that I'm going to be seeing the right. These are all the inputs. Let's just go to target responses. Oh my gosh. Did it work? I think it worked. We've got the right names in there. That was kind of the lookup method was a little hacky, but the target response records, I'm just doing a quick refresh so my brain isn't playing games on me. Go to the targets. Go to Chuck Norris. I should have one record in there. Come on. Load. Should go to the Chuck Norris target. And I should have one related list record. Well, that was easier than scripting, but you want to try that too? Chuck Norris will never have a heart attack. His heart isn't nearly foolish enough to attack him. That's one reason why I use this API for demos. It just lends some humor to it. So we can also, we've got some time. We can pursue Dave's idea too.
So if that works, is there a simpler way than that?
Then
did we have another method other than doing a lookup to get to that?
Well, this is
that's simpler.
This is what's crazy because sysid is okay. It's matching. This is a GUID. If you expand this out, you've got record, you've got sysid as a GUID, and you've got target, which is a reference, and it has a sysid, which is a GUID. But for some reason, I couldn't use a sysid in a reference field. There's some data matching thing that's not quite smart enough in Flow Designer, in my opinion.
And that's I think that record type is the key. I think that's what's making this not work. I don't know that I understand this well enough to really put it into to like really verbalize it, but I think like what we're doing with the lookup is I think we're doing like an adapter class. We're turning it from sysid back to record because the
yeah,
thing is not
so
automatically doing it for us.
The other option would be down here, since we know we can. Here, this is where I'm creating my record again. I know I can drag a record type in here. I can drag a reference in here, but it's wrong. I can also drag strings in here. So another option would be we create, this one's nice because it's out of the box, but we could create an action that does a script that returns the sysid for us. Just like a one-liner that says, you gave me a record, I'm going to .walk to get the sysid.
Yeah, and that's certainly possible. And I'm trying to think, what was the thing? There was a thing, I think it was in the OAuth world, where it wasn't related to these references, but there was a thing where I believe Josh had to do some kind of a one-liner script specifically because the thing that had to happen was easy to do in glide scripting world and hard to do in Flow Designer drag and drop world. And that's kind of where I think you would descend into that, where it's exactly that. It's a one-liner if you've got, you've got a glide record.
I'm a little disappointed because this is not an intuitive step. If I were a process analyst, I would go, okay, I've got a list of records. Now let's go create some other records.
And let me take this as a to-do to make sure that we're thinking about this right. We may have to.
We can at least get an explanation of what the heck's going on to clarify. But again, I'm a little disappointed. Okay, so we know we can do that. We've got a few minutes. I want to explore the script version. Let's create a new action and call this get me a sysid. And I'm going to take two inputs. One is going to be a table. Oh, wait. The record is going to be of a table type. So it's simply going to be, here, we'll hard code it for now. It's going to be our lookup record. And it's going to be of type records on the lookup table. Oops. Too many lookups in here. Let's go with LCHH again. It's going to be on our lookup table. That should be all we need to start this ball rolling. Then we'll do a script step in the action. That's going to take an input. Hey, after last week's mess, we're pretty good at this now.
Yeah, this is one of those things. It's both. It's a double-edged sword. The fact that the actions and the flow use basically the same UI, because the upside is you don't have two different modes, and the downside is sometimes I forget which one I'm in.
That's not my problem. It's getting the relationship between the action inputs and outputs and the step inputs and outputs is where my mental gap starts to go nuts. So outputs dot. We'll need an output. We're going to return a sysid, which is basically going to be a string. Call it target response. No, target sysid, because that's what we want to start in the response record. So outputs.target sysid equals inputs.lookup gr dot target.sysid. I don't normally like to walk to a sysid, but in this case, I want to make an exception. And then finally map this to this.
Did we create the input in that script step?
Yes. Now you got me. All right, we'll go look.
I think we did the input on the script step, but not on the action.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I said lookup record was a record from the lookup table. Script step is taking a lookup record. Okay, you were drinking. Come on, admit it.
Well, that's
there's our script to dot walk this, turn it into that, effectively just changing my reference pointer to one step down in the dot walk field. And this will be the script step output for the sysid. I'm drinking and coding, so someone has to do a sanity check on me. All right. Then instead of lookup target record, which is the non-scripty method of a shim, are you sure you want to delete the selected item? Sure, why not? Then we'll get more beer mugs on our flow, which is always encouraging. Don't forget, kids, our secret little step to inserting a step between an action between other actions. You just hover over the line, a little plus comes up.
Yeah, I know. I was using Flow Designer for 6 weeks before somebody pointed that out to me.
It's so simple.
I had just never noticed it.
LCHH, get me a SysID. I suck at making up names. So the lookup record is going to be from our... It's almost getting humorous now. Save, so you can do the data pill picker. There's another beer joke in there somewhere about pills.
Apparently we need to give you trickier things.
Okay, why is this still grayed out? I'm on 2.3. Oh, because I am on 2.3. I need
you want the one
lookup. I need the lookup records record. Correct. That's just a fun state. Oh, hey, why didn't that work? Huh. For each lookup record. Okay, whatever. When drag and drop doesn't work, try the cannonball. The lookup records record. That's just a fun line to read. Then the output of 2.3, we should be able to drop in here. Oh, I didn't name it very well. Okay, here's a naming standard thing, kids. When you're naming your outputs, the step inputs and outputs should be friendly names. Target, SysID. The action inputs and outputs should be friendly names. The steps should be more like, why didn't it save that? It just reverted. Did you see that?
I noticed it, and my Skype's unhappy, so that means it was really noticeable.
Huh. Okay, well, weird.
I'm wondering if it isn't because... Why don't you go back to your flow? Take that out for 1 second.
Take the pill out.
Yeah. Take it out for 1 second.
It's barfing on something, you think?
No,
I don't know this. This is a complete wild guess hypothesis.
Okay. Delete.
Take the pill out.
Delete.
No.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, darn.
I was just saying, just take the value, the drop value
hammer. Of that. Oh, yeah. out of the create record.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it wasn't in the pill, but we'll take that out too. We've just done a lobotomy on our flow. Okay, outputs, target, SysID. This is what's going to be presented to the non-coder, so make it non-coder friendly. No, huh. All right, let's do it this way then. Create output, target, SysID is going to be the script steps target SysID. Okay, renamed it there. Weird. You too can have this fun at home. Now let's put our action back in. Beer mug, SysID. I want to see if drag and drop works. Oh, save.
we will get that memory.
I'm just going to start saving after every time I put an action in. Look up record doesn't work, so take the cannonball for each look up records record. Done. Now this guy should have target, all this to make a reference field. Wasn't this easier in scripting at one point? That's not the right name. What happened to my nice friendly name that I put in there? How the heck with you? Done. Save. We're just going to test. Did I delete the old legacy data so we don't get confused? There'll be two records in here. We'll just keep going. Test. First record. Like most of developers, I keep testing the same thing over and over. It worked before.
That'll never cause you an issue.
Never. Okay, just do a quick look in the log. Everything completed. Looks nice. Let's do a quick look at the list. And, thank you, Live List Updates. There is a second record in there, which is very nice. TNT was originally developed by Chuck Norris to cure indigestion. So we can either do a lookup records shim or have some crazy script to say, you see that lookup record? Go return a string, because I can either drag records or strings into this target field. Your choice. What did we learn here today, kids?
We learned we could turn a string into a string and make a different activity happy.
Well, so
and save off.
I've been playing on the side with like trying to exactly understand like the contours of what's happening here. And
Okay.
and when the so if you drop the record, I've been trying some flows where you're just taking that, you're using the actual record as the reference, and that I've never had a problem with that. Right? It'll drop. It's that the reference is a field in the record that you're for eaching on, and that's when it seems to get dicey. So
Yes.
it's the it's the one remove. It's the using the reference that is contained within the record that you're looping on. That's what we're having trouble with.
Maybe let's find that out, because my trigger record also has a reference in it.
Okay.
So could I put that in there? Yes.
Let's
Why
try
does
this.
that work? It's something to do with the for each then. You
Yeah,
want to try it?
I-
Try it and see if we get a bogus sys in there?
I think you're right there, Dave, that the looping over it, the for each, means that the target sys could be different for those.
Well, that's what we want.
Well,
And
I
we want
wonder.
those.
I wonder if it means that the thing basically the data type returned by the for each is maybe not what we think it is. Maybe I think that might be the part that we're not connecting. I think there might be a mental mismatch there.
The fundamental understanding of what a record is.
Yeah,
in Flow Designer.
what that thing is that what you're for eaching on.
Okay.
That basically that list data type.
Yeah.
Because that thing is like, it takes the list, it converts it to one item of the list, and we're thinking of it as a glide record, and it might not be.
Might not be.
That under there. That might be the thing. Is it may not be a glide record. It may be.
Oh, wait a minute. That's not a
Like
valid
a
test, because
gray item.
we could drag a reference in there. My question is, if we drag this reference in, are we going to get a
drag that
sys
one.
or a class name?
Yeah, no, just test it. Let's see.
Okay.
'Cause this will give us some data that I think we can find.
If it's specific to the for each, or if it's specific to the
Right.
data type. Okay. We're experimenting, kids. The scientists always say the greatest learning moments aren't when you go, Eureka. They go, that's odd.
That's when I learn things, is when I get it wrong.
Absolutely. And you remember them a lot well, too. You remember them better when they say if you learn from your mistakes, look, we got a sys and not a class name.
Right. So that's the button. That's the sys ID of the button.
But we
that
couldn't
generated it.
Yeah. And when we went to the lookup record item, the one that was being iterated over,
Mm-hmm.
we got a class name when we tried to dot walk, when we picked a reference field. So in one case, when we pick a reference field, we get a sys ID, which is what I want, just not from that table. And in the other case, I get a table name.
So let's go back to. Can you go back to the flow for 1 second? So
Let me get rid of these just so I don't have crazy bogus data. Back to the flow.
And I really feel like I have like the barest fingernail grasp of what's going on.
Okay,
So
you got more of a fingernail grasp than I do.
So we know. So the trigger is known to be, because we're triggering on like the change of a glide record, right?
Yeah.
Or the insert of a glide record.
Right.
I forget what the trigger was.
Yeah, it was an insert. Yep.
So we know for a fact that is glide record there. When we come down here to the each, I think we have evidence that is not a glide record, because when we try to do the identical thing with that, we get something different. So that target, like when you tried to drag, so if you clear out button and you try to drag target, it won't let you.
No, it will.
Or it will, but that's the one that gives you the class name.
It will. It gives me the class.
So what could be? I'm trying to think.
That's the confusing part.
What could be the data type?
Yeah.
What could be the data type of that lookups record? So it's a record, not a. Can you go up to the top? Tell me what does the thing on the right say about the trigger?
On the right say about the.
If you like in your data, does it say the trigger is a
record,
and
button is a reference within the record?
Button is a reference.
Button is a reference.
And the other thing is also a record.
The other thing is a record with a reference in it.
With a reference. Yeah, that's.
The only thing I can think of, Dave, is the short answer is get value. Okay, somebody's not using get value. They're trying to dot walk. But if that were the case, I would have expected a different result in that target would have worked, given me a sysid, but it would be the same sysid every time, which is what you get in a while loop when you don't use get value on a sysid, because it's a glide record is actually a pointer. But that's not what we're seeing. I wonder if it's related.
Can you run it again? Just to... Can you just run it again?
Glutton for punishment, are we? You want it this way with the lookup record target?
Just exactly the way it is.
Okay, done.
I just want to see it fail again.
It gives me the target table name. Test.
Because it just feels so wrong.
I know. That's what we're just pulling our hair out today. And God bless the process owner who's trying to do this.
Yeah.
Table names.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah, and I think we've done about everything we can do experimentally. I think we need a ruling from from somebody with some understanding of the behind the scenes of this, because it's.
Yep.
This may be one of those things where, and what it might be. So clearly, there's a mismatch in our understanding of it. So the question is it a mismatch in implementation or communication? It may be doing what it's supposed to, and we don't understand that. And so, that's I'm going to take this as a action item to ask about this.
And it's either going to be Josh or Becky that can help us here.
Yes, it'll be in the form of URL and time code.
If you need me on that, or we can crank out a video or some way to explain this, or we got to jump on a Skype call and use this instance, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, because this is not super esoteric. I can imagine somebody running into this situation.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
This is not. We didn't get too far in the weeds before we ran into this. So the question is really, what is the proper way to do it? Because as we've seen there, we had a multiple different ways of adapting that, taking that record, getting the value out of it, and making it be something that we could add in there. Both of them feel a little off.
Yeah, they're like kludges, obviously.
Having to look up,
although I'm not giving that to a business analyst in that manner.
Get me a sysid.
But I'm trying to see, again, like the whole data pill model is shared between Flow Designer and is shared between the automated testing framework. And you do have a similar model in ATF where you do a lookup of a record, where you're essentially like loading the form. And I wonder if there's something in the model of that's driving it that's not.
That could be.
Obvious.
We may be inheriting functionality from ATF that is unwanted.
Or I wouldn't say unwanted. I'm just saying I think it might be. I think there might be iceberg under the surface of that control that is confusing us and that is making it not obvious what's happening. So that's kind of where I want to. That's kind of what I want to dig into and find out is that where the mismatch? Because clearly something's mismatching.
Yes, either in our drunken heads or in the code.
Okay, so is there any further work you want to carry on this, Chuck?
No, that's it for now. I mean, I just wanted to. The next step would be when London comes along to throw this through a mid server and use real URLs to see if I can hit the target device. So that's the whole concept of what I was trying to do. Coincidentally, this is all based off of the the Amazon Dash Button live coding happy hour we did last fall. And my latest love interest with technology has been RFID tags, the NFC communications. So I ordered some, and rather than build another application, I used my phone, which I switched to Android in January from being years and years of iPhone. I said, hey, this is fun. This ought to be a fun experiment. I was able to take that Amazon process flow and use the NFC tag to generate a REST post payload and simulate it was an Amazon button. So the same format, I said, here's the serial number, here's the click type, and here's the battery voltage, which, the NFC tag has no battery voltage, but it was fun anyway. And I used the same input, my same scripted REST API on my instance to receive that from my phone. So effectively, the ServiceNow instance doesn't know the difference of whether or not it's received an Amazon button click or an NFC tag event. It just goes, okay, well, I'm going to do whatever you tell me. Oh, look, an event came in. What do you want me to do with it? And it does this same process of go through the lookup records and says, oh, the living room NFC tag was tapped. I'll turn on the light. I guess I didn't have to do anything really except configure my phone to pretend it was an Amazon button. Like, that was fun.
Well, it's very much like a button action, though. So you scan it, and that's what happened. It's sort of like tapping a button.
In ServiceNow parlance, it would be the difference between a form button and a form link. It's the same code. You're doing the same thing. It's just where do you want to display it, but it's using the same APIs.
Your model that you got like out in the world is like you've got an event is going to come in, and like this is why you've got that kind of inside out data model, right? Because the event's coming in, and the event will always be the same. The thing you need to know is what was the source of the event.
Right.
So,
well, what do you want me to do with that event more accurately?
Like the mapping between that thing and like what does that event on that device mean for the next action?
Yep.
Basically.
I changed absolutely no code on my instance. I'm bringing it up now. I made a couple new button actions, which is the effect of our lookup table that we were on the other instance. I just sort of generically named the tables. So here is my dash button actions. And come on, demo instance. Normally, I would have a button equals bedroom and click type is single. Well, you can see down here, I have tasker, turn living room shelves on. Button is tasker test and click type is single. It's the same app. I just registered my NFC tag on my phone. It's sending the same JSON payload. So the scripted REST API is going, oh, look, something happened. Now, whether it's from an Amazon Workbench event test or from a real button or from an NFC tag on my phone, doesn't matter. Now, what I should do to make this a little more noteworthy is put together a blog article that explains the different pieces I used on my phone, because there's Tasker, there's Trigger, and I think I had to download a REST API input for Tasker as well. So if you're using any or all of those, you know what I'm talking about. If not, they're easy to find.
See, what I'm wondering as I kind of listen to you talk about that is whether or not it's too restrictive to think of this as the dash button registry.
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking.
IoT event registry.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, it's starting to get further away from...
I was thinking the same thing. That's a good design, is that your design is generic enough to it not just been an Amazon button registry. It's instead a registry for single point in time actions.
Yes.
And then I think as you learn a little more about the other stuff, is like, is the model that you already have, is it generic enough to accept, would it accept, say, the events that happen on a nest? or like a Nest camera or something like that.
Yeah, that's where it starts to get a little dicey, because let me go into Studio and bring up that app. Because the REST API is specifically listening for 3 bits of request information. There it is. It's listening for where is it? Go to API, scripted REST API. I don't use GoTo enough. And I should have a resource in here, right? A racehorse. And my racehorse is my script. Come on. Loading. Slow browser, take a drink. We're almost out of beer and we're almost done with the show. How convenient. So this is where my post comes in and says, thou shall have, and this is because it was originally directed towards the Amazon Dash button, thou shall have a payload of this format: serial number, battery voltage, click type. So that's what my phone is sending, because I told it to send that. And I even hard coded the serial number to say, this is trigger_test phoning home. But there's no reason why I couldn't name those NFC tags something a little better.
Yes.
From the Nest, it might have to go through something else, or I could put in a different resource to be listening for that payload.
Well, or it may be that like serial number is really just GUID, right? Or unique identifier of some kind.
Yeah,
and
okay.
Click type,
yeah.
And click type is really just event.
Well, it does come in from Amazon with these. I don't have a choice how Amazon sends it in here. So it's got to be listening for this particular type for the dash button. But what I could call this one is button hit. The other one could be NFC tag, and I can put in a different payload, tap. Maybe all it needs is a serial number. I don't think I need a battery voltage. I don't think I need a click type. And
is there anything else in that payload that is identifiable? Does the payload say that it's from Amazon, or it literally has just those 3 fields?
It's just those 3 fields. That is a sample payload right there. So, I mean, I if I want to make this more extensible, I would have a different resource, a different endpoint, effectively, for each type of device. I may refactor this to make it simpler. Then the registry. Well, the registry is easy. The registry just takes the serial number and associates it. Where'd my dang thing go? It just associates it with a name. So rather than I see this when I'm in my condition builder. The condition builder. The condition builder right now is statically linked to the button hit table. Where is the darn thing? The button hit table, which right now stores all 3 pieces of the Amazon payload. That's interesting. How could we make that more generic? Because effectively the click type and the voltage won't mean anything. Do we store it as a payload associated with that IoT device?
So I think you could genericize click type and voltage to be other identifiers for other types of devices. So you could have the button is your NFC tag, for example, and voltage or click type could be which phone it was that did the scanning.
Okay.
You have 3 fields, and therefore you can have 3 parameters. So you can have the unique one, which is our button. That's pretty generic.
Yeah.
And then we've got flexibility with the other 2 to say the second one could be, which thing's interacting with it. So you could think of a user on an Amazon or which phone it was. And then the third one could be the action or thing that it's sending. Whereas probably I just use click type for that because it's got doubles and singles, and you could say temperature up or temperature down.
Right.
It's your action, and voltage could, instead of just being voltage, it could be the identifier, the secondary identifier, like phone. It's Chuck's phone versus Dave's phone when he comes to visit.
Yeah.
So it's the same NFC device.
It would make the condition builder a little trickier, because this could no longer be a choice list of known quantities, because the NFC tags could be sending one of anything. It could say, IoT tag living room. The action was Chuck's phone versus Donna's phone, this would be the action. Turn on, turn off, that kind of thing. Right. Assuming I had two tags next to each other, turn the TV on, turn the TV off, and the voltage would be. Well, that's an integer right now, but that could easily be a string parameter. But then the condition builder would be. It could still be statically linked to that table. But then I'm seeing how that would go. Come on, finish building the condition builder. So the device is
I think
NFC
your
tag.
condition builder is the thing that's going to. I think it's the roadblock to genericizing it.
I think so. Yeah, it's making it a little trickier because you've got known fields here, unless you had for every resource endpoint you had a different table. And then you could make the condition builder based on a table and say, this is based on the Amazon Dash table. Now you can put Dash conditions in here. This is based on the NFC tag table. You could put NFC tag conditions in here.
Yeah, that is possible where you had it basically like a superset, like meta IoT event thing. One of which would be the class of the thing that just happened. Or basically the device that just came in. And so you could basically have an adapter, right, where if you had the endpoint per, just like you do, it would be saving what you're saving now with one additional field, which it knows that everything that comes through that endpoint is an Amazon Dash event. So it just basically hard codes that through that endpoint, because that's the only thing that talks to it. But I'm beginning to wonder, the more we talk back and forth, I'm beginning to wonder the value of the generic event. I don't, because I think we were initially.
Like we've gone too far.
It's a good
we were
thought.
Excited, and now it's
because
my quick phone hack isn't sounding so good anymore.
Well, that was the thing. Is like, what if you had a thing and it just collected every event from everything? But the fact that you have that little bit of specificity is always going to, like, for this particular use, is always going to be a problem. So I don't know. I mean, these are the trade-offs we make. Right?
Yeah, and they're good design questions to be thinking about with any application as you go through this. How far can we take it? How generic can we make it? How many parameters do we have to specify? Is that user friendly or not? I may explore this a little further. I like your example because I do have a Nest. I have not. I started digging into the API for that thing, and I was not pleased because it had like callback APIs, and it got a little scary for me. Maybe we need to explore that a little bit more on Live Coding Happy Hour. It could be an opportunity in the future. But I'm thinking if we expose a table up here, we could then use conditions to make this even more flexible, but yet handle the different types of IoT devices that are reporting in. This little IoT, busy box that I was showing you before the show that we're using it could send an outbound REST API. You just define the endpoint, and what is it telling you? It's got a temperature humidity sensor on it. It's got, I think it's the only sensor it's really got. But it could be doing the same kind of thing and saying, I have something to report to you. And then this application takes and says, great, what do you want me to do with it based on these rules? It says, oh, it's an input from the BusyBox table, and it has these parameters that meet these conditions. Therefore, I'm going to load a script or create an incident or create a record in another table. Remember, we still have this unadvanced version that says, here's a table and here's some field values, go fill them in. It could even send back in the payload some of that message content. I don't know, different ways we could slice this. I think it's still possible to make this fairly flexible.
I think the problem we're trying to avoid is that, let's imagine the future where you've got 15 different kinds of things, right, that you want talking to your instance. Do you want to have 15 sets of, or even worse, right, 15 sets of events and 15 sets of logs of events, and you know what I mean? Basically duplicating what you've done once for every single kind of event that comes in here. And that becomes to that becomes a drag after a while. So like finding the balance of the specificity to be able to handle exactly the information that's coming in, while being generic enough that you don't have to have a full copy of everything for every single type of event.
Where do you want to put the management on this thing?
Yeah.
Is it sufficient to have a central table that says, here are all my lookup rules for any IoT device that has any type of action that comes in? And that begs the question of, what do you do if it doesn't match any of these rules?
Right. I mean,
do you log that somewhere?
When we were looking at this, what it put me kind of in mind is the ServiceNow event, right? Where you have param 1, param 2.
Yeah.
And you don't know, like generically for the event, you don't know what param 1 and param 2 means. It's only in context of the specific event, right? So
that was the other thing I was thinking of, is maybe you store, like we were doing in the flow, is store the payload somewhere and then parse it apart with something else later. Mm-hmm. But and then it becomes param 1, param 2 thing again. But I don't know. It's an interesting discussion to explore.
All right. I think with that, let's call it in for a landing at that point.
I think we had a nice detour.
That was a good discussion. I love doing stuff like that.
This is literally what we spend all day, every day doing and thinking about and talking about. So,
well, usually it's to ourselves. You know, you ask these questions, but you only go so far. It's like, I got the solution. I can do this. But I think it's incredibly, exponentially more valuable when you can bounce ideas off of somebody else who understands where we're going with this. And both you guys did a wonderful job with that.
All right. Let's have our beer ratings, and then we'll wrap it up there. My Young's Double Chocolate, I am actually enjoying it. I'm going to give this a 4.25.
I was like a good Negro Modelo. I'm going to give this a 4.25 also, and I think I'm going to go out for some Mexican seafood tonight.
There you go.
You don't have a choice now with that.
This really needs some lime, is what it needed. Not lime and salt.
Oh, you didn't have lime with a Modelo? That just makes
I knew it tasted bland.
sadness.
Yes, I know. It's a crime.
Yeah. And so for mine, the Samuel Smiths, it's pretty good. It's a 3.75.
All right. Decent.
All right. Well, with that, I don't know what we're going to do next week. It may very well involve the like back to orchestration world, something like what we were trying to do before. So certainly me and a well-known person to this particular show have a breakout session on this very soon. So we maybe actually have to have the thing working in order to demonstrate the thing working in the breakout section about the thing working.
I learned a lot about orchestration this week, thanks to Craig Stepp, who guided me through some rough patches. All I was doing was a very short demo to create a user on a Linux system, and ran into some rough waters. He helped me through that, and I would be happy to share what I built and how it went at some point as well, because there's some fairly significant pitfalls that can kill you if you're not watching for them.
Mm-hmm. And I would like to pick up the AirWatch integration as soon as we can get our hands on a London instance.
Oh,
all right.
Yeah. And you know what else we haven't built yet? And it wouldn't take more than 5 minutes, is an app to track our beers. We haven't been tracking our beers.
I might pay for, if you pay for Untapped, I think you get API access. Yeah.
Oh, we could totally do that.
I was just going to ask that. I was thinking about that last night as we were brewing up the source code porter.
And I have a P card now. So don't tell my boss.
That would look good. Subscription to
Untapped on the company
What's
card.
it for? It's part of the show.
I can give you the URL, man. Look, we
integrated
into it.
The show.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, everybody who watched real time. Everyone who watches later. As always, we had a rough stretch where travel and whatever kept us from doing this, and it just my weekend is not the same when you don't get into it this way.
Exactly.
So, I know mine's not.
I'm just sitting around until 3:00 when it's time to fill out expense reports. There's no excitement in that.
All right. So unless the rivers rise, we will see you again next week. And thanks, everybody, for watching. And thank you, gentlemen.
Take care. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.